Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. But for this tutorial, I just want to talk about different ways to create a foundation for a painting. And I'm just using paper today because I'm not going to do a complete painting. I'm just going to show you a simple starting point that you could use to create any kind of painting. Now, a lot of times when I jump into my tutorials, I'm just using the basic art supplies, primary colors plus black and white, a few brushes, and a pre-gessoed 8x10 panel canvas. So you really can explore different options besides that, but I like to use that just because it's really basic, a little bit on the less expensive side. But I usually just dive right into painting the background and this and that. I don't do an underpainting for these tutorials because they're really fast. My goal is to help people find time to make art, because one of the biggest excuses I hear is that I don't have the time to create, and I want to make that more feasible. Now, one thing that's fun about this is that you could do an underpainting and have that just be all you do for the day. So it could be really, really simple. Like, okay, just today I'm going to make this underpainting and then later I'll come back and finish it. So you can always just do a painting in parts too. It doesn't have to be sit down and finish from start to finish in one session, even though that is kind of my preferred method because I like the satisfaction of completing it. And like you just kind of, it's very satisfactory to do it and be done, and it keeps your creativity flowing. But sometimes if you're working in a different method, it can be fun to just start with an underpainting and then come back to it later. So what we're going to work with is the idea of a wash. Now, a wash is where you add a bunch of water into your paint to make it really thin. And this is how a lot of people start their paintings. And some people there's a little controversy around that. So there are other methods that you could use to create a wash-like effect. And one of those is by using acrylic ink. So I'm going to show you that a little bit, which is essentially like wash-like material. It's like very thin and runny. So you could use the acrylic ink to make a wash too, but I'm going to use just the acrylic paint to make it. This is still the Liquitex primary colors for your acrylic ink. So if you ever want to try inks, just primary color ink, try it out. You know, it's kind of fun. I'll link it so you can check it out. But what I would do, for example, say I wanted to do a floral. Let's just say I'm going to paint, let's find the middle of the canvas. I like to do that. Find the middle. I'm going to put a little vase kind of off to the right side. So I'm going to make a little rectangle shape. And that's gonna be my vase. And then I'm gonna have some flowers. So let's have like a flower here. Let's have like a small one here. Let's have a small one coming down over here. Another big one here. Like a medium one here. This one could be going off the canvas. Same here. Going crazy here. You can make smaller and bigger ones. I'm gonna do one more little one right there. Okay, then that's gonna be it. So I'm gonna have a vase, circles for flowers, and then the rest is gonna be, maybe I'll have like a table. So let's make a little table in the background. So this will be color, 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 and then different color wash just to start the project. Now down here, let's go ahead and make like a purple wash. So all I would do is take a flat brush of sorts, come to my purple paint, which again is just mixing blue and red, and add a bunch of water to it until it's kind of runny. You don't want it to be way too thick, because then it won't be a wash. And then I'm not putting that much paint, but I'm going to go in and add that to this portion of the piece. Okay, so this is going to be like purple down here, and I'm just putting it in loose because it's not going to be the finished painting. So see, that's how I would add a wash there. Notice how it's like really almost kind of transparent and obviously washed out looking. Then for the sky, maybe I'll do more of a blue or a turquoise. So I already have some turquoise here, which is like blue with a little bit of yellow. And then again, we're going to make it into a wash by dipping our brush in the water and then adding it into the paint. You want it really thin. Then I'm going to come in loosely and pull it in around my shapes. Maybe you want it a little lighter, add more water. I'm doing it, I'm exempling on paper, but this works better on canvas because, but this is watercolor paper, so it's okay to add this watery paint to the watercolor paper. I have a tutorial on how to prep for painting for paper, painting on paper, for those who want to explore that and maybe save some money on canvas and save some space because canvas takes up a little more room. But notice I'm going in between the flowers a little bit to put this background color. So mellow. And you can even add some of that into the bottom. Sometimes it's fun to spread, make your wash like a little bit random like this. I love it. Put it under the vase a bit. So now I just added a little bit of the top to the bottom, which is totally fine. The whole background could just be one color if you wanted. And then for the flowers in the vase, we'll do some different colors. So the base, I'm gonna make yellow or like an orangey color. So I'm gonna dip the brush in the water and come to my orangey color, which is just red and yellow, until it gets thinned out. So keep dipping in the water until it gets thinned out. My paint water is kind of dirty, so it's gonna affect the paint a little bit, but not too much. It doesn't matter because you're gonna end up painting over this anyway. That's why it's called underpainting. And then we have this wash of a yellow color. Kind of got some of that. This is where we get to be really loose and so fun. Fun. Okay. Now, last but not least, let's do our flowers. Now, I'm going to go with more of a pink color for the flowers, or just red even. So I'm going to clean the brush, get all that other color out, and we're going to do our red and maybe a little bit of white mixed in, and then make it into a wash by adding a bunch of water. And this is the predominant color that I want my flowers to be in this painting, which is really standard. And then we'll go in and add that as our wash to the flowers. I'm just making circular shapes, just like I did with the pencil, to help out, like to help lay out the composition. So sometimes it's helpful to have that so that you know where everything's going to go, and you don't have to, you can always add more as you paint, but it just gives you a fun foundation to go off of. Got a little bit of chunky paint in there. We've got just a couple more flowers. And there it is. So this would be an underpainting. And I know it looks kind of like, whoa, what the heck is that? But what you would typically do here is the wash itself is going to dry really fast. Like my bottom here is already dry. My flowers are still a little wet, but since it's mostly water, it's going to dry super fast. And then what you can do is have this as a foundation. You can go in and actually add the colors you want that can be similar, but you're going to build on it and you're going to cover most of it. But if you have a little bit of canvas shining through, that's okay, because there's paint everywhere. So when you have your wash done, you want to make sure there's no empty canvas after you are completed with your wash. So I can see here I have a couple of little empty, or I have a couple of spaces where there's some paper that's not painted. So I would just go in with either your background color, your flower color, whatever colors that you missed out on, and just make sure to have a little bit of coverage everywhere. There should be no empty paper or canvas or whatever you're working on. It should all have a little bit of paint. I'm just choosing this color to make sure. And I just had a couple of little tiny spots that weren't covered. That way, when you go in and paint, you know that you have there's no empty canvas. So it's okay if you don't, your layers have a little bit of the background color shining through. It actually looks really cool to stylize it that way. So this is just a really rough idea of how you can do a floral underpainting. And then this can turn into something obviously totally different as you build and layer.